Thank you very much for this kind introduction. And yes, hello, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Marc Erkens. I'm heading the Sustainability and New Mobility Department at DKV Mobility. So, and I've already watched the presentations, and I think the sentence, the road to zero, has already been discussed. But I think what I usually observe when I go to conferences about transportation and the decarbonization of this industry, I think the heavy burden is carried, right, by the car manufacturers. We have heard a great presentation about Scania, what they are going to do about the decarbonization of the industry. And then from the demand side about fuels from GTK, transportation company, a very big one. What are they going to do? And I always miss a little bit, and this is what I want to bring in and also to challenge ourselves, my own company a little bit. What is actually the responsibility of the mobility service provider in this industry when it comes to decarbonization? Because we also make profits in this industry. And this is something I would like to bring in, and also to bring in, to share a little bit a personal story from my side. So it all began actually last year with a CEO talk I had. So this was like sometime in April 2020 when Corona has hit all of us very hard. So there was a question from my CEO, and he was actually thinking whether I should become the role to oversee and be responsible for our overall sustainability and green initiatives. So he asked me, what do we need to do to become a leading green company in our industry? And the second question was actually a little less comfortable. Can you prepare a strategy and present it to our shareholders next month? So I was, at this time, I was a little bit like his right-hand guy, his chief of staff, and I had a big question mark, because the very first question, and I strongly believe that this is a very important question when it comes to the EU Green Deal about the Fit for 55, how to manage or to get to these targets. What is actually our role? And in this particular case at DKV Mobility as an intermediary in decarbonizing transport and mobility. And for those of you who don't know DKV Mobility, so we are well known for our fuel cards. We are across Europe. We have 65,000 service stations. I think in Lithuania currently more or less like 400. We have like 5 million fuel cards and onboard units where you can pay also your toll with on a daily use across Europe. We do 10 billion of transaction volume every year, and we have only, you can say, 1,500 employees, 230,000 active customers. A large part of our customers are actually the GTKs of these worlds, so larger and middle-sized and smaller transportation companies. So and if it now comes, okay, what is actually what we should contribute as a mobility service provider to the EU Green Deal, to decarbonizing this industry? I thought about, okay, I mean, we don't own any heavy assets, right? And there are so many players out there who don't either. Or we don't have any production lines. Okay, maybe we have an own fleet around 50 cars. And if you then look at it, how we look at this, how we looked at this in the past, you hire like a third agent company, climate company, they do your carbon balance, they came to the result, oh, you are emitting 7,000 tons of CO2. And then you get the offer, which is, by the way, which is pretty low, right? 7,000 tons of CO2 is like 600 Germans in average emit 7,000 tons of CO2 a year. So this is literally nothing. So you cannot make any impact by reducing this number to this industry. So and then they offer you the opportunity, by the way, you can offset this carbon for 5 euros a ton. You pay 35,000 euros at the end. And then you get like a confirmation, Urkunde in German, which says you are climate neutral. So I said to my CEO, well, maybe I'm actually not that much interested in taking this job, but I digged a little bit deeper. So as I started a little bit earlier, who's carrying the heavy bags? On the supply side, we have the mineral oil companies and we have the automotive companies, and they are already forced to transform, and they already do. That's what we can see. They got hit hard by all these regulations. The Renewable Energy Directive forces them to produce more biofuels and bring them into the market. We know now that CO2 is now currency, right, which has a price tag. this makes it way much more complex and has more financial burdens for them. And then on the demand side, what you can literally see currently in a very extreme way, I mean, the carriers, the freight forwarders, the transportation companies, they have to pay the majority of the price, right? They pay higher fuel prices. Toll becomes a finance instrument, so tolls will probably increase very soon, right? So, and I always ask myself and discuss this also in our company, but also with our competitors, what about them? What about the players in the middle who also make their profits in this industry with driven kilometers, with fuels, etc.? And this is what I've missed in the past when I observe these discussions as conferences. So what is their responsibility and contribution to this? So we strongly believe at DKV that decarbonization should not only be the job of the old cars, the automotive manufacturers and the fuel consumers. And that's, I think, the way how we need to look at it today. So I think there's one interesting number on this chart. If you go on the left-hand side, you see like a 2017 number, like road transport, like roughly is responsible for 18% of Europe's overall CO2 emissions. So then I looked at our 2017 numbers and I realized that our customers fueled 4.5 billion liters fuel, 4.5 billion with a DKV fuel card. And we exactly know this number because we exactly know what kind of fuel, at what fuel station, at what time, at what price has been fueled up. So this equals 12 million tons of CO2 emissions, which are burned by our customers, but paid with our cars. So I went back to our CEO and after that to the share and say, guys, we have a 1.5% challenge. Because if you do the math correctly, these 12 million tons of CO2 are actually 1.5% of the EU road transport overall CO2 emissions. So my answer to a strategy question was, let's put our focus on the 12 million rather than on the 7,000 tons, what I've presented earlier. And this is actually our green motto number one, what we still believe can, if we stick a little bit more to this in this overall industry, this can boost up the decarbonization of transportation with regard to the Green Deal. It's about collective responsibility over collective self-defense. And if you talk about this with the experts, they say, yeah, but this might be double counting because somebody needs to own this CO2 emissions in their balance. But I think, so my answer is the world climate doesn't care about double counting and who's actually producing the fuel. They care about who's decarbonizing the fuel. And I think like everybody should step up in this industry and do something against it. So then the chapter 2 is a little bit about what I did afterwards. It's like what I call taking the pledge. So what we did at DKV, and we strongly believe, and we have actually, we got actually pretty good feedback over the last year. We believe that every company actually needs a pledge, a very clear commitment publicly to the outside world about what they are going to do to decarbonize. And we defined our role in 2 different aspects. So our role number 1 is that we say, okay, as a company that consumes energy with 7,000 tons CO2 a year, we want to put a flag into the ground, come up with a bold, ambitious target, because this is actually not the most challenging topic to decrease 7,000 tons of CO2. We want to become climate positive till 2023. But more importantly, as a mobility service provider, and now these 12 millions are actually, if you look at 2019, already 14 million tons of CO2. We want to help our customers to decrease their carbon intensity by 30%. And I'll make it easier. 30% carbon intensity means that until 2030, we want to help our customers to decarbonize 5 million tons of CO2. This is a very huge number, in particular, if you consider the fact that we are 1,500 employees. So we have 3 key levers, what we are going to do. The biggest lever is what we do. We connect sites, right? And we provide payment options, better prices, one bill to get access to conventional, but also to alternative fuels. So we're gonna help our customers to electrify their fleets by providing the largest European charging network in the future. We are in a very good way, by the way. Have already connected 200,000 sites across Europe, and we want to offer the largest European network of natural gas, biofuels, and hydrogen. This will actually lead to more or less like 3 million tons of CO2 savings. Then we are innovating around digital products that we help our customers, in particular truck drivers, with our new product DKV Live, to optimize the routing, but also to find freight on the go to avoid empty runs. This will bring in 1 million. And since many years, we are the only one in our niche industry group who offers a compensation card where you immediately, if you pay with the card climate of DKV, can offset for your carbon emissions. And we want to increase this number of compensated liters until 2030 and do another 1 million of savings. So this is a little bit, we defined like our decarbonization compass, what are like more concrete targets below there. With regards to the electrification, we offer at road, at home, and at work charging solutions to our customers. And with regards to alternative fuels, bio CNG, LNG, hydrogen, we are pretty hard also working in the associations to promote e-fuels. We are a strong believer of e-fuels. And from today, we already sell 500 million kilowatt hours of low carbon fuels. We want to do more than 3 billion in 2030. And 3 million tons of CO2, this will be the effect, is like more or less roughly, you can say, like the whole city of Vilnius emits a year. With the digital product that's already mentioned, from 35,000 users to 250,000, this would actually decarbonize a whole city like Eindhoven. And with a compensation card, another 1 million, which will decarbonize the city of Rennes. So the motto number 2, what we believe is very important in this decarbonization game, is what we call compass over maps. So we strongly believe you cannot plan everything. And we always figure out that we lose ourselves a little bit, maybe too much, in all these discussions about what will be the right fuel, future fuel of the future, what will be the shares of liters in hydrogen, in LNG, in e-fuels, and electricity. So we think that you actually need like more like a compass than a concrete pledge commitment, than a concrete map where you plan everything and actually lose time. And losing time is actually bringing me to the last topic in our game, which we started last year, getting things done. We need to decarbonize now. We have already heard this a couple of times during the conference. And we see it in 2 ways. So for the new fleets, and everything I think has already been said during the conference, the future will be an electric future. The future will be a future powered by hydrogen, and maybe it will be a future around e-fuels, right? That's why we stepped up. We managed to double the amount of public charging stations within 1 year, from 100,000 to 250,000 currently. We managed to offer the largest network for LNG and CNG consumption across Europe with 2,300 sites already. And we recently added hydrogen to our network. But we also need to take care about the existing 1.6 billion fleets worldwide, which will not disappear from today to tomorrow, right? And I mean, we in Germany have had a great example this summer about the flooding catastrophe. So the world climate doesn't care about who is actually carrying the bag, right? We need to decarbonize now. We need to do something now. That's why we recently defined new cooperation partners, for example, with Bosch, where we now offer a diesel-friendly fuel called R33, with which you can already save up to 20 to 25% emissions. HVO, we offer our customers now CO2 tracking services so that they get real-time overview of how many CO2 emissions they emit, to also change a little bit and to put attention on the topic. And we are going to offer by the end of the year also the opportunity to digitally compensate for the CO2 offsetting, so not just by using a card. And this is actually the last thing I wanted to share, the third motto we strongly believe that we need to become more of a nowist and not a futurist, because yeah, the climate doesn't wait for us. We have to do something. So thank you very much. This is it from my side.
Thanks, Marc. Very, very interesting and motivating presentation. I'm not sure how you see me, if you see me, but
I can see you.
Oh, thank you. I have one question, the precise question. Your clients, how did they react to it? What was their feedback? And if you could just go, I don't know, not maybe country by country, but at least by the region, like South, North Europe, Western Europe, Eastern Europe, were there differences in the reaction for your proposed program?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And actually, yes. I mean, what we see is in Western Europe, and in particular now, if you assess the number of charging stations, for example, but also if you assess the infrastructure for in particular bio, CNG and LNG, and we have a different gameplay around the regions, right? But nevertheless, this, what I tried also, what you can see here also on this page, what I tried to bring in their minds and to convince them also to do more collaborations about this topic. It's irrelevant who owns these emissions, right? So this collective responsibility, and that's why we got very good feedback actually from all regions, right? That we go hand in hand, because we as a mobility service provider, we can also stimulate supply with regard to alternative infrastructure, right? So because we have buying power, right? So I always say we act a little bit like an association, right? Because we have this platform business. But no, the feedback was very good that we put this number, because this number everybody else is hiding, right? So 40 million tons of CO2. So in my company, I got challenged by everyone. Do we really come up with this number? Because we just are a payment scheme, right? But I say, no, we are indirectly responsible for this number because we make profits, right? So for me, it's not the question about who produces emission, it's who makes profit with the emission, right? You can also, for example, take an insurance company, right? So the logic of a P&L of an insurance company, yeah, in the transportation industry works like the amount of growth of driven kilometers, yeah, will actually increase the turnover of every insurance company, right? So where are they when we talk about the decarbonization of this industry, right? So it's a little bit provocating, but I think that not just like blaming and putting the oil majors, the automotive companies and the transportation companies into the spotlight. I think if we think a little bit more creative, yeah, there are others in the game field who can really make a significant positive sustainable change, even if you have just you're a company of 1,500 employees, right? This is actually what I wanted to share. And no, the feedback was actually very well. Obviously, we had more discussions in the western and southern part about it than in the eastern yet, but we are fighting hard.